Hi. So first I want to take the organization. I will talk about the extons and the exton polaritons in 2D materials. I come from the Aeronautic Institute of Technology. So people ask if we have physics in the ITA. So in Brazil, ITA is very famous because of Embraer and the airspace industry. So talk about a little about ITA. It is localized in São José dos Campos. It is between São Paulo and the Rio. We are famous because of the engineering undergrad courses, but also we have graduation, 3 graduations in engineering. We also have science and technology, airspace, research, operational research, and the physics. So, yes, we have physics in ITA. We are in expanding. The goal is to double the size of ITA, both professors and students. So we are now in a new building for the fundamental division. We have a very young department. We have 9 new professors in the last 2 years, for a total of 20. We are divided in 4 research areas, and I come from the atomic and molecular physics that has a group of semiconductor materials and the nanotechnology. We have this group has 4 professors, and we have now 2 postdocs, and the graduate and undergraduate students. So we have a bit numeral group. I will talk about first describe the optical conductivity and absorption in monolayer transition metal de chalcogenide. So the experimental data has this kind of structure. We have 3 peaks in the absorption, optical absorption, that correspond to extons. The first 2 peaks corresponds to exons that lives in the cap point. And this bigger peak, it is an exton from the gamma point. So there is a lot of theoretical works. So I will skip it. Nuno already talked about the structure of transition metal de chalcogenides, so I will skip it. And we have a lot of theoretical models and experiments, and no one agrees between each other. So I will present my work here. It is this orange curve. It is here. It's a bit close with one of the experiments, but we can see that it is a very complex problem, and we are a bit far from reaching an agreement between experimental and the theory. Here in the left are tight binding and effective models curves. In the right we have dft dw plus Betz-Salpeter equation. The black curves here are experimental data, and so we can see that it is there is no any agreement. Well, I will make a very brief explanation of our theoretical model. We started with the Heisenberg equation of motion. We use it for a very Hamiltonian, that for a massive Dirac equation. We use a Hitava-Keldysh potential that includes the screening because of the 2D material, and the coupling between the electric field of the incident radiation and the electrons. So writing this equation for the density matrix and taking the expected value, we arrive the semiconductor Bloch equations. That in this way is very ugly. We have here the term that arises from the coupling of electric field, the electron-electron interaction, and the baryon-Hamiltonian. And after simplifications and the approximations, you can write a kind of Bethe-Salpeter equation. We have here the renormalized transition energy. We want to find the interband transition amplitude, the dipole matrix element. We have a term that arises from the electron-electron interaction, and renormalizes the Rabi frequency. And here appears occupation difference. That is the Fermi-Dirac statistics. So, solving this equation, we can compare we find the optical conductivity, and you can compare the absorption, the optical absorption with the experiments. And here we have a qualitative and sometimes a quantitative agreement between theory and the experiment. It's not good, but it's not worse than any other theoretical model. And from the semiconductor Bloch equation, we can obtain the Elliott formula. And it is a very simple equation that takes in account the contribution from the exons. And you have 3 parameters: weight, the exon energy, and the exon line width. And both the exon energy and the exon line width can be calculated by this kind of model. And I will use this in this equation in the next section. That I will talk about exon polarity. This is wrong. It is in HBN. Nuno already talked about polaritons, so I can talk very briefly. He derived the boundary conditions for the exton, and from this we have this equation for the transverse magnetic mode. And he didn't show, but we can also calculate a similar equation for the transverse electric mode. And this equation, we want to find the relationship between the frequency and the wave number. And this is a complex equation. So to find a solution, we need to or take a complex frequency and the real wave number, or the complex wave number and the real frequency, or both complex. So let's talk briefly what this means. For every choice, we have this describes different experiments. So if we have a monochromatic wave focused in a finite region of the sample, and we want to see how the polariton propagates from this region, we need to use the complex key approach. However, if we have a pulse that covers the entire sample for a finite duration in time, and after we shut down this pulse, we have that the damping is given by the complex frequency approach. And there is a simple relationship between those two approaches when we are in the electrostatic regime, and this relationship is given by the group velocity. So we have studied the propagation length with a complex key divided by the lifetime of a complex frequency is equal the group velocity. Now I will study the exton polarities in HBN. First, I need the parameters of the Elliott formula, and now I will use one obtained by G0 W0 plus Betz-Salpeter equation that was calculated by Fabio. And the Elliott formula gives a very close agreement. And with this formula, I calculated the dispersion relation for the polaritons, exopolaritons in HBN. We have both TM, transverse magnetic and transverse electric modes for both exons. So here you can see that we have two main exons in the optical response of HBN. And for each exon, we have two polaritons modes. I also calculated the properties of HBN with the complex key approach. I also saw the dispersion relation. For the TM mode, we have finite maximum wave number. For the TM mode, upper figure, we have the wave number can go to infinity. And also we have see the propagation length. We can see that the propagation length is only bigger than 1. Bigger than here I am showing the relationship between the propagation length and the wave number. So to see a polariton, this curve needs to be bigger than 1, or the polariton will be short-lived. So only for the TM mode, this for small damping. Here I am showing different dumps. Only for small damping, we can see polariton. However, here I show the confinement ratio, and it is for the TM mode, this goes to infinity, so you can have very confined polariton. However, for the TE mode, the polariton is poorly confined, except for very small dumps. The next problem that I want to show is the renormalization of the band gap and the exciton energy because of a metal. So, as Rodrigo already said, when we have a 3D material, the Coulomb potential is screened by the material itself. However, for 2D material, the Coulomb potential will be screened both by the material, but also by the environment. So I have a new degree of freedom here. So this I want to study what is the effect of a metal close to a transiton metal, the chalcogenide. So I consider here idealize the problem, the dielectric and the perfect metal. And solving the Poisson equation, I obtained the analytical equation for the reciprocal space, and here appears a parameter that arises from the static polarizability of the 2D material, and the effect of the metal comes in this term. And I plot the difference, the ratio between this potential and the Coulomb potential. You can see here this pink curve corresponds to without a metal, and the other curves is I am making the metal closer to the material. And we can see without a metal, the long wavelength region, the heat of a Kelvin potential comes close to the Coulomb potential. However, when I include a metal, this potential goes to 0 in the long wavelength limit. So here I can control the effective electron-electron interaction by the distance with the metal. I wanted to calculate how the electronic properties changes. So I will need some kind of gap equation. I will use this is stationary condition that says it's like the current when for the current needs to be 0 when all external fields are 0. So I arrive in integral equations. This is the renormalized band gap. This is the Berry band gap. Also here appears a renormalized velocity, and here is the Berry velocity of the massive gap, the massive Dirac equation. I will define these new variables that measure the deviation between the renormalized and the Berry gap and velocity. But however, here appears the potential. The potential is the solution of the Poisson equation. However, here appears the R0 parameter is related with the 2D susceptibility. And I can calculate the 2D susceptibility with the RPA. However, the RPA depends on the eigenfunctions. And these eigenfunctions I take for the Hamiltonian with the normalized gap and the velocity. So here I have a set of coupled integral equations. And I plot here a schematic to how to solve this. I start with a gas, with the not renormalized system. I calculated the new gap and the new velocity for a first interaction. With this, I can calculate the new polarizability. With the new polarizability, I can calculate the new potential from the Poisson equation. I see if the system has activity convergence. If not, I go back. And I stay in this loop. After convergence, I could go back with the Bethe-Peter equation similar as the one that I already presented. With the Bethe-Peter equation, I can calculate, here I put the radiative decay rate. This is, it is related with the Elliott formula. And with the Elliott formula, I can calculate macroscopic parameters as like transmission, reflection, and absorption of light. I will show some results now. So I here see how the band gap and the Jackson energy changes with the distance with the metal for MOS2. And here you can see that we can control both parameters with the distance. And this can become the metal becomes important as with a distance of almost 50 nanometers. Next, I will talk about experiment absorption of light by WS2 in a cavity. So this is recent work. Let's talk first for a suspended 2D material. We can show that the absorption can be written this way, where this function depends on the conductivity of the 2D material. And I wanted to see what's the maximum value of this function. I can say that this function is a complex number, and taking the partial derivatives, the maximum absorption will happen when y is 0 and the x is 1. So putting back these values, I find it that the absorption is half. So we can't achieve more than 50% of light absorption in a suspended to the material. One way of increase the light absorption is using a cavity. So this is Van der Waals at structure. We have here HBN, and inside we have WS2. Here is gold, and here doesn't matter, but it's sapphire. If we instead the light, we have reflection and multiple reflections between the HBN and the air, and between the 2D materials and the gold mirror. So this is the experimental data, and the absorption in this experiment is defined as 1 minus R divided by R0, where R0 is the reflection without the WS2. If we have a perfect mirror, this expression is exact. We can see that we are achieving almost more than 90% absorption in a single atomically thin layer. And we can see that here we are changing the temperature. As we change the temperature, the line width, symbolized by this gamma T, also changes. And we can see that the maximum don't occurs at the small temperature that corresponds to small line width, but somewhere between. And the line width increases with the temperature. Oh, well, I will try to briefly explain the theoretical modeling. So we write semiconductor Bloch equations in terms of extonic operators. We have two equations, one for the dynamics of the exon operator, and another one for the dynamics of the number of exons. With those two equations, we introduce two kinds of weights. One we call the phasing weight, and another one we call non-radiative weight. We solve two equations to obtain a relation between the polarization and the electrical field in the 2D material. We use this relation in a kind of quantum transfer matrix method, and this equation is solved to obtain the quantum average of the reflection operator. And after that, we can calculate the absorption. Here is a schematics. So we have an incident electric field, an incident electromagnetic field with this electric field. We have two fields near the 2D material and the ongoing electric field. And all those fields can be related by transfer matrix. And what we want to calculate is the expectation value of the reflection operator, where the incident field we consider that is not quantum and it has a normalized norm. So we will use the transfer matrix method between those fields. However, they can be operators. And near the 2D material, the polarization appears as a discontinuity. And this corresponds to the boundary conditions in the Maxwell equation. And we can calculate the polarization operator as function of this C is the Exton creation operator, and this is the poly term. And we need now to calculate this term with the semiconductor Bloch equation, and we write both for the exton and the number of extons. Here you appear this first term is the exton energy. Here appears the coupling with the total electric field. Here I consider, but after I not taking account, but this is phonon field, and here is contribution from all the other possible things. And calculated the sum equation for the number operator, I have similar quantities. And in general, the expectation value of the number operator is not equal to the square of the exton operator. So this implies that the square of the polarization, of the average polarization, is not equal the average number of the square of the polarization. So this appears as a quantum correction. Simplifying, we will find three quantities that describes the intrinsic properties of the TMDC. So we have radiative decay rate in vacuum, the pure dephasing, and the difference between the polarization will be proportional to the pure dephasing, and the non-radiative decay rate that is related with the exton population. Those parameters can be calculated from microscopic models or fitted from the experimental data, and I will do a fitting to describe this kind of experiment. And I find that the absorption can be written as for the near the exton peak as function of two ratios: the radiative decay ratio and the total line width, and the pure dephasing and the total line width, where the total line width of the exton peak will be given by a sum of the three decay rates. And it will appear three geometric parameters that are related with the transfer matrix method. And we predict a parabolic behavior when this ratio is small. So since we have the optical response will be given by these three decay rates. And here we compare the model with the experimental data, and here we have these squares are experiment, and here we plot for different curves, for different dephasings, the absorption, and you can see that for a particular value, I can see almost half milli-electron volts. We have a very close agreement. All the possible regimes in this kind of experiment can be described by a ternary graphic between the three rates. So here I have this total line width. The total line width are composed of these three terms, so I using a ternary graph. We can see here we have a very high absorption regime. Here we have a regime that corresponds to total reflection, and here we have a regime that corresponds to not optically active. We plot also this we can see that if we plot the absorption times the experimental line width as function of the inverse of line width, we have lines. Two the lines are happens because of this absorption. And this can be also seen in this kind of graphic that here for small, here this corresponds to high temperature regime. All the points, all experimental points are inside the parabola. And for the small temperature, the points deviate from the parabola. So I am out of time. I have some final remarks. The ground state and the external properties of 2D materials depend on the dielectric environment. Extons in 2D materials are susceptible to quantum optics effects. We predict and confirm the universal absorption law for extons in 2D materials. And we are given a near unit absorption for extons in an atomically thin crystal. My main collaborators in this work, Nuno, Ricardo, and Fabio of University of Minho. In ICFU, they did the experiment, Itai Epstein and Frank Coppens, and of course others. And from ITA, Tobias Frederico. And I want to thank the